Good morning and welcome back to the Mayor's Table. I'm Mayor Tommy Roberts, and joining me once again today is City Manager Rob Mays. And Rob, it's good to have you back with us.
Good morning, Mayor. Happy to be here.
Rob, in October of last year, staff presented to the City Council a conceptual plan for the development of Farmington Lake as a recreational area. This is a topic that had been promoted by Councilor Duckett, probably principally, and other councilors are very much supportive of the future development of the lake as a recreation area. I think there are a number of reasons why we would want to proceed in that manner. First of all, I think our citizens are indicating a desire to have the lake open and available for more activities. I think there's an economic development factor as well that we want to consider and take advantage of. The idea would be to bring people from the outside into our community and have them bring their dollars into our community and spend them here. You were instrumental in seeing that this conceptual plan be brought to the council. What was the basis for bringing it to the council in October?
Yeah, well, I think there's been a long-standing recognition that that's a beautiful setting and a beautiful asset up there at Lake Farmington. People periodically tell us about places they go and visit, that there are city parks in settings like that are great attractions. So like you pointed out, there's been an interest expressed. So the council gave us direction and authorized a small amount of money to conduct a feasibility kind of conceptual study. It's a very, very initial study that you mentioned that was presented to you in October of 2013, where it just shows kind of a vision for what Lake Farmington could be. Starts with the improvements to road and infrastructure and utilities that will have to eventually be put up there, and then suggests various phases of various components that could be built, from a swimming beach to a boathouse where there'd be boat rentals to more playgrounds and picnic areas, and then ultimately maybe even the possibility of a developed campground, and likely potentially a public-private partnership, or the city to develop it and put it out for operational RFP.
I think we do want to stress that this is a conceptual plan only, and it's likely quite a ways off into the future. Funding fully this conceptual plan would be a challenge. It's most likely that we'll approach this in phases and bite off some of the low-hanging fruit initially, and to develop the plan and adopt the plan in multiple phases and stages. But nevertheless, we think it's important to get this information out to our citizens. We've had a lot of interest expressed in it since October. People are concerned about how we would raise the dollars that would be necessary to fully implement the plan. But let's talk a bit about those dollars and what would be accomplished with the expenditure of those funds. My recollection is that the total cost associated with this conceptual plan was $11 million.
Yeah.
About $9.5 million of that in things, developing trails, any physical things that might be erected, those kinds of costs. And then about $1.5 million in extending utilities to the area. And that would envision camper use and that sort of thing, recreational vehicle use. Talk about what that $9.5 million would get us ultimately.
Well, I appreciate your caveat to that, because again, this is a concept, kind of a money is no object concept. What might we do up there? And that's of course not the approach that the city will take. It will be very incremental. In fact, that's already begun. Last summer we opened up the lake for kayaking and boats, non-motorized boats, and had a lot of interest, and a lot of people are starting to use it. The council is considering right now the possibility of beginning some phase-in of a swimming beach, and so and all these would be very, very small incremental costs that would show the public's interest in it and what the usage would be at much small dollars. I mean, well under $100,000, and so those numbers kind of concern me, is that they were so high and kind of so vision and conceptual that it could kind of discourage people from the viability of the project in these economic times.
The official city policy regarding the use of Lake Farmington has been that it is off limits to recreational use in large part, if not entirely. So the idea that we would develop the lake for recreational uses is a deviation from that longstanding policy. Why would we, from a staff's perspective, recommend to the council that that policy be changed?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I'm happy to address that. First of all, most city water reservoirs around the country, or at least many of them, are open for recreational use. And it's important to understand that Lake Farmington is not our drinking water. Lake Farmington is a reservoir where raw river water, with all the drain-offs and all of all the things that drain into a river, and animals and other things, is pumped into a storage reservoir. And that's what it is. It stores our future drinking water. We then pump it out of that lake to the water treatment plant, where it is then treated. Then it's pumped into to storage tanks, and that's our drinking water. And so first, you kind of need to set aside that misnomer that we're drinking Lake Farmington. You wouldn't want to drink Lake Farmington any more than you'd want to go out and drink out of the river itself, or out of Navajo Dam, or any other water source. So it's not a safety issue. It's not a health issue. It's simply a policy issue as to how we would choose to use our reservoir. And in this case, the council has indicated an openness to really study the feasibility of using it for recreational purposes.
I think another concern that we have dealt with recently is the invasive quagga and zebra mussels, and the concern that they might be transported into our drinking water source. Have we gotten by that concern at this point in time?
Well, I wouldn't want to go so far as to say we've gotten by the concern, because the fact is that we pump that water out of the river. And so if the river becomes contaminated through any of the other upstream sources, it potentially could be pumped into our reservoir, and we would have to manage it. Overall, our reservoir is considered a low-risk area, because the primary means by which these pollutants enter water sources is through larger boats and motorized boats. So we made the decision to open the lake back up to single-hull, non-motorized boats, because there's virtually no risk in those types of boats. They're inspected before they go in, and then they go into the water.
I know I feel comfortable the way that we have addressed that issue, and I think we can continue to address it in a reasonable way.
Well, and to add, we have an aggressive testing protocol that goes on to monitor that issue all the time.
And I appreciate the fact that you've talked about the general perception that people have about human beings playing and swimming in a source of drinking water, and you've explained very well how that water is taken into our treatment facilities and treated to drinking water standards before it's distributed to homes and businesses.
Right.
But nevertheless, it's interesting to me to realize that many people still have that concern.
Yeah.
And it's just a concern that I think most people with education will be able to get by.
Yeah.
Rob, we could spend a lot of time talking about the ultimate plans in this conceptual planning process, but I think that my mission here today was just to simply advise our citizens that this is something that is on our table now. It'll be a long process, but we'll be approaching it in phases, in increments. And thank you for being here today to discuss it. Once again, I want to thank all of you for tuning in and viewing this segment of the Mayor's Table. We'll look forward to having you view in again next week.